Well, we came, we saw, we went around to town, and we have a result. Beyond that, I don't know what else to call that, but welcome on in. This will be season 7, episode number 16. It's the 2025 Monaco GP and the Indy 500 review show. You've got Andy and I'm along with Cody tonight. We actually did get our golf round in on Saturday. It was bad, but the biggest thing for me was I was able to go. Fully participate, got all 18 holes in. So I feel just good about that, considering what was going on with me over the last few weeks. But other than that, Cody, how's been the rest of your weekend?
It's been busy. We did the golf. Did a wedding slideshow for family and friends. I went to a friend's choir concert, and in all of that, I was lucky enough to squeeze in the Monaco qualifying and race sessions. I unfortunately had to watch the Indy 500 stuff later because I was very busy. But, I kind of wish it had been the other way around after this. I kind of wish I had seen the Indy 500 and maybe missed the Monaco race, but I guess we're going to get into that.
Yeah. We will get into all of that. We'll get into some of the good, some of the bad, and if you're talking about some of the Indy's 500, some of the ugly, the weird, and even 24 hours later, the breaking news again in the Indy 500 world. So the drama continues to just drip all over this month of May in Indianapolis this season. But we're going to get into all that a little bit. But if you have found our show, welcome along, as always. You can find us on X, Instagram, Discord, Reddit, and, of course, here on YouTube. At Outlap F1 Podcast is the handle for all of that. If you enjoy what you're looking at and you like what you're listening to, if you're on YouTube, you can do us a solid and click either the like or the subscribe button. If you're on your favorite podcasting app and you're listening to us that way, thank you as well. If you want to click and give us a 5-star review, that'll just help our content get a little bit better catch of search results when people are looking for content like this. You can email the show as always, not that one, outlapf1@gmail.com will definitely be the route to get you to us. Outlap F1 Nation, who continues to support our show, thank you so much to Dean Warwick, Yuri Dolchester, Paul Weaver, Quentin Warden, Kevin Kelly, Regan Stanzik, Timothy Brown, and of course, Jonathan Scott. If you'd like to become a member of that hashtag Outlap F1 Nation, there is a link in our show notes. It's an anchor page. It does ask for a small little monetary donation, $1, $5. What does that do? It all helps keep our technology relevant, keeps us in our wonderful recording platform that we use all the time, keeps our microphones and other audio and visual equipment as up to date as it can be. So, and we will just put it right back into the show. All right. I guess that's the particulars out of the way. Let's hop into the madness here. We'll start with our headlines of the day. Cody, what you got here, sir?
Mine is Welcome to Monaco, the track where overtakes are made up and pit stops don't matter. It was the same as we usually see from Monaco, where Saturday is amazing. Some of the closest and most exciting qualifying that we get in the entire season. And we did see LANDO pretty much steal away pole position there right at the end with a fantastic lap. And I was thinking, well, that means he's got 99% chance of winning the race, but things are going to be a little different this year, right? We've got mandatory 2 pit stops. We've got the softer compounds tires. Maybe things will be different this time. And it wasn't. It was exactly the same as it always was. It was boring as hell. And we got to see teams trying new and interesting ways to try to circumvent the whole pit stop thing. And it was ugly and not fun.
Well, that's certainly fair, and that is a critique that we're definitely going to talk about. My headline of the day is quite simply, I'm going to take this one from James Vowles, who I thought summed up the entire Monaco 2 pit stop experiment perfectly, where he just said, on the air, in front of everybody, that's not the way we like to go racing. And especially even because Williams was one of the biggest offenders of doing all of the games and all of the stuff that everybody didn't like. James Vowles admits it, but it was the only way to try to get a result. So if you were trying to get a result, I guess that was okay. But yeah, I'm with James Vowles on this one. It's not the way that I think we should go racing. It became a race much more about when were you going to pit versus what could you do on track. And the fact of the matter is, we've said this many times before, it's the cars, man. It's the cars. The cars are too wide. Track is too narrow. There's only one lane to get around that place. Qualifying is bonkers and outrageous and totally worth the price of admission. The race feels like just something you have to get through because you feel if you win the qualifying, you probably are going to win the race. And that's exactly what happened. There was some tension late. We're going to talk about it in a little bit. Max Verstappen certainly makes life a little bit interesting all the time. That's just what he does. But it proved not to at the end of the day, it proved not to matter at the end of the day. All the games and all the pushing and all the lack of pushing basically equaled the same result for the most part that we saw out of qualifying. So we're going to get into all of that in just a little bit, but we're going to start with that epic qualifying. So we'll take you through the top 20 here. Here we go. All right. Starting off in P20, he did not have a very good qualifying Saturday in Monaco for sure. He was off the pace for most of the weekend. Franco Colapinto in the Alpine, ouch. Slightly worse, but not quite so bad. That was Lance Stroll in P19. He did not have a very good weekend either. The other Alpine of Pierre Gasly did not have a very good weekend himself, especially come Sunday. He was only good enough for P18. P17, Oliver Behrman, who actually got a 10-place grid penalty for a red flag violation. That means he had to technically start in 27th. Only good enough there for him. P16 was Gabriel Bortoleto in the Kick Sauber. Advancing through the Q2, but going no further. These were surprises. P15, Kimi Antonelli in the Mercedes. He had problems and crashed out basically at the end of Q1. P14 was George Russell. He also had engine trouble and was unable to finish the session. He gets a DNF for Q2. P13 was Nico Hulkenberg. P12 was Yuki Tsunoda. P11, just missing out on the top 10 shootout, was Carlos Sainz. The top 10 shootout from 10 to 1. P10 was Alex Albon in the Williams. P9, Liam Lawson. Hey, remember that guy? Was in the Racing Bulls. P8, Esteban Ocon, one of the silent stars of qualifying, if you ask me, in the Haas. Great lap time there. P7, he can still motor around a racetrack. He's the unluckiest man in Formula One, but at least on Saturday, a little bit of light shined upon him. Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin. P6, the other silent star of qualifying, Isaac Hadjar in the Racing Bull, a very respectable lap time there. P5, this was a bit of a surprise given the earlier form. Max Verstappen only able to get to P5 on the day in the Red Bull. P4, Lewis Hamilton, old still good. Thought about maybe the potential of a podium here as Ferrari suddenly found themselves in the game. Good enough for P4. P3, championship leader Oscar Piastri, struggling mightily all weekend long. Very, very loose rear end of the car. Only good enough for P3. P2, we thought he did it again. Charles Leclerc shows up in Monaco. Doesn't matter if he likes his car, doesn't matter if he hates his car. An amazing final lap to put a ton of pressure on the eventual pole sitter, and that was Lando Norris, who we thought all gave it away late, but rallies at the end, at the death to take pole time, a track record 109.954. We're going to have to break this qualifying session down because it got epic late. Woo! Cody, big thoughts here.
It definitely was a little bit of a kooky session in some ways because, as you said, we did get some penalties during the session. Oliver Behrman did overtakes under red flag, so he got 10th position grid penalty, which he was pretty near to the back anyway. Probably didn't make a whole lot of difference for him. However, Lewis Hamilton ended up getting a 3-place grid penalty for impeding Max Verstappen, who ended up really being the one who benefited from Lewis Hamilton's penalty. It was a bit of an interesting exchange on the radio between Hamilton and his engineer because his engineer made it sound like that Max Verstappen was slowing down, that he wasn't on a fast lap when I guess he was. And so Lewis kind of moved the car over and ended up impeding Max. Max got really pissed off. Lewis is going on the radio and said, "I thought you said he was slowing down." So I really don't feel like that one is on Lewis, but does take a penalty. That ends up giving Max one place higher up to start from, which is really, really useful in Monaco. As for Max himself, he did not have the greatest qualifying session. 5th was the best he could do. He couldn't really put it together over the course of the whole lap. always really exciting to see what Charles Leclerc can do here because he apparently loves this track. He wants, even though he's already gotten the win here now, it seems like he wants nothing more than to get the win again. And like you said, it does not matter what his car is like. He knows this track like the back of his hand and is willing to put it all on the line to go for the win. And for the moment, it looks like Ferrari doesn't really have much else to go for unless they bring some super upgrades next weekend. So I guess he was figuring that he would put it all in for this one.
Yeah, I mean, the final Q3 second run, the first run saw, I think, the two McLarens out front, and I don't know if Leclerc had split them or not, but the setup of the final run was the two McLarens went early. The two McLarens went out with about 4 minutes to go, which is usually not what they do. They're usually trying to set themselves up to be the last two. So they wanted to go out and set a marker with full, clean track, no traffic type of situation, and they got it. And they found something like half a second. So they got down into the 110.1 range. Lando was in front of Oscar at that point, and I'm sitting there going, okay, that's really good. I mean, that's about what you would have to do. That's what you normally would have to find in that last run of Q3. So maybe that's enough. And I'm watching Lewis come at it, and I'm like, Lewis doesn't have it. I'm watching Max go at it, and you could tell early Max quite didn't have it. The McLaren finally found something in the first sector. They were getting just killed in the first sector, which is not a long sector. It's only like 18, 19 seconds, but it was like 3-4 tenths down the whole race, or the whole qualifying. And so then they find it, and I'm like, okay, I kind of sit back a little bit, but I knew. Then all of a sudden, here comes Leclerc. And I watched Leclerc's first sector, and it's really close. And I watched Leclerc's second sector, and he goes purple. And I go, oh, Lord, it's on. Now it's the third sector where any little hitch here and there is going to make the difference. And sure enough, with about 30 seconds on the clock, Leclerc pipped Lando for P1. And I'm going, oh, it was so close. So close. But because the McLarens had gone out with 4 minutes to go, they had an opportunity to cool down their tires and have another go at it. But you almost would think it's a C6 tire. The best potential lap you were going to have was that first one. It didn't look like Lando was really improving. But again, Lando's his first run on that tire was so good. So the timing is putting a lot of yellow mini sectors in there just because they weren't quite as good. But the end of the sector was still showing green. And I'm like, okay, well, Lando's improving. He doesn't have to improve a whole lot more. It comes down to the third and final sector, and he just gets there at the very end. Oscar couldn't quite do it. Lando did. I'm going to, 3 words that I will always remember. When Lando went out, and this is one of the reasons why you want to watch an onboard, especially in Monaco. It wasn't Will Joseph, Lando's normal engineer, who told him this, but it was, I think, the guy who works with Lando in the simulator that said, remember your qualifying rules. And he said, line, throttle, braking. And he reminded Lando and said that you got the best first 2 turns that you've had all weekend on the last run. Do that again. And he made it stick, and it sets a track record because of it. So just kind of an amazing, from a show perspective, really couldn't ask for more.
Yeah, and you and I had talked about whether we thought that they were going to break under 1 minute 10 seconds and set the new track record, and they ended up getting there. It was some super speedy, super amazing qualifying. I love the camera shots where they show the cars just rubbing up against the guardrails. It's definitely fun, and as we saw with Kimi Antonelli, there's no room for error on most parts of the circuit. You make one little mistake, and your car's crunched, and you're out.
Yep.
So that part of Monaco is amazing. That's what makes it exciting.
Yeah.
I just wish it transferred better to race day.
Yeah, I mean, the other pleasant surprises, I would say Isaac Hadjar, hell of a good lap for P6. Fernando Alonso dragging the Aston Martin. Yes, we did see an Adrian Newey in green sighting, and he is looking at cars again. I don't know how much he's going to be able, if at all, to contribute to this year's car, if they're even asking him to. But the fact that he was there, I think, probably gave Fernando a bit of sense of calm and allowed him to kind of go out and do his job. And again, the other star, Esteban Ocon. I don't know how Haas does this. Sometimes it feels like it's done with smoke and mirrors because the car is not great. But here's yet another Q3 result. And Liam Lawson, hey, remember that guy? That he showed up and managed to get it in not only in the Q3, but to take advantage of the one team who I thought fumbled this were the Mercedes. I did not understand whether it was just that they could not find a setup, or some of it was mechanical, some of it was just engine conking out in weird places. Usually, don't see anybody like die in the tunnel, but that's what happened to George Russell, and Kimi Antonelli had something similar where it looked like the car hit a bump and it conked out, and he lost control. And coming out of the tunnel, into that little chicane there, a wreck that looked probably a lot worse than it was, but still not a good result for them.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any other thoughts on the qualifying before? This was the fun part of the weekend, so let's get it in now before we get to the procession on Sunday.
Let's see here. Who haven't we talked about yet? I guess Liam Lawson, like you said, did get into Q3. Big step forward for him. Still getting out qualified by Isaac Hadjar, though, so he definitely needs to pick up that pace a little bit more. We had one Williams make it into Q3, one not. Carlos Sainz just missing out, but at least they got one in there, so they were in the run to get points. Yuki Tsunoda still trying to get on top of the Red Bull. It seems the more races that go on with him not making it to Q3 and stuff like that, the more nervous I am becoming. And Lance Stroll had the misfortune of getting a penalty for the race for the grid position from practice, which is interesting. Normally they don't really hand out a whole lot. Well,
Charles Leclerc's front wing may have something to say about what Lance Stroll did.
Yeah. So I feel like you pretty much only get a penalty in practice if it's pretty egregious, and I guess it was a pretty egregious. Stroll did cause the collision. He only gets one grid penalty for that, but then he also gets 3 more grid positions penalized for impeding during qualifying. So Stroll just stacking on the penalties, and it didn't really end up mattering that much to him for the start of the race anyway, because he qualified way down in 19th. So, what's 4 grid positions at that point? I guess you're technically maybe still starting ahead of Oliver Behrman.
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
so.
And we talked about Lewis getting the unfortunate impeding penalty. I do think by letter of the law it is a penalty. It's more on the team. It's not on Lewis. I mean, Lewis is going where he thinks he's trying to go, try to make some room for somebody to try to do a lap, but just kind of wrong place, wrong time type of situation there. All right, so we will flip over to the Sunday race where we had the minimum 2 pit stop thing in effect, and it definitely was. It played a role. We didn't have too much of the leaders doing 1 minute 19s. We did have it a little bit early, but then they at least had to have their own little mini race, or at least they were all pushing. So I guess that's progress, if you want to call it that. But I didn't think, in terms of entertainment value, other than it being tense, which we've seen Monaco be tense before, I don't know that it brought anything gargantuanly good to the show. But anyway, we'll take you through the field here. So the 2 not classified finishers on the day, one went out on lap 1, and that was the number 10 of Pierre Gasly. He had a wreck coming again out of the tunnel, and banged his tire, ruined his suspension. His day was done. He lost all basically his braking, and actually managed to tootle all the way around and get back to the pits, which was kind of surprising because everyone expected him to kind of park it where it was. The other non-classified finisher, again, the unluckiest man in Formula One. He was on for a points finish. He was going to get a points finish. All he had to do was let the pit stop cycle out, and he would have been fine. But the Aston Martin, the Mercedes engine in the Aston Martin, no less, conks out on him on lap 37, unable to go any forward from there. But he did park the car in the nicest of places to prevent safety car issue messing with the result type of thing. So I give him a lot of respect for doing that. He didn't necessarily have to do it, but he parked it in the right exact spot. But again, just really unlucky for Fernando there. P18 was Kimi Antonelli and the Mercedes. The Mercedes had a rough Sunday. I think that's putting it mildly. P17 was Yuki Tsunoda. P16 was Nico Hulkenberg. P15, the other Aston Martin of Lance Stroll. P14, he found the barriers on lap 1, did manage to get it going again. And, through attrition, basically gets his car up to P14. That was Gabriel Bortoleto in the Kick Sauber. And P13, the other guy who I think just battled through attrition to come home as high as he did, was Franco Colapinto in the other Alpine. Not a whole... These guys' race, everybody back here, it was a painful, long Sunday. I think they're just happy to be done with it. Cody, any big thoughts here?
I think Fernando Alonso tempted the Formula One gods with his comments about I am the unluckiest driver in the world. And the F1 gods looked upon that and said, oh, well, make it so. And yeah, he was on for getting points. He had great qualifying, especially given how poor the Aston Martin has been this year. And considering how hard it is to pass. He did get unlucky during the race, though, because he pitted into some slow traffic that was being held up by drivers trying to make room for their teammates to get pits. So he was stuck there. His engineer was telling him to push, and he actually kind of lost his cool and was like, I can't push. Like, where do you want me to go? But yeah, his car ends up giving up the ghost. As you said, he did pull it well out of the way. It happened on a fortunate part of the circuit where he could actually pull it way out of the way and not really interfere with the race, which was, pretty sportsmanlike. But yeah, just continues to show that he does have some awful luck. We're a third of the way through the season now, and he still doesn't have any points. He's really close on a few occasions, but just hasn't quite gotten there. And it's a little disheartening to see the things he can do with this car and still be behind Lance Stroll in the points. It's a little painful.
Yeah, you almost have to think like the next chance. Where's the next chance for him to get off the schneid here? It might not be all the way till Hungary, because Hungary is another track where it's not as engine dependent. It's really more on the driver versus the car that you have. And Fernando Alonso's made a really good in the second part since he's come back. I always thought him at Monaco was always where he could do something special. He's done even in some of the awful McLaren cars that poor guy had to drive. He would get a result. He'd get like a P7 or a P6. I remember one year he got a P5 out of Monaco, and it was like, hot smoke and mirrors and everything else, and just, making it work to try to get that car home. And you thought he was on for it because it looked like he'd survived, the first pit stop cycle where he comes out in the traffic of the ultimate slow pack, and the engineer goes, okay, now we push. And his radio message, I'd have said something pretty similar. I'm surprised it actually made the broadcast, because I'm sure he was a little hot under the collar, and rightly so. I mean, where else do you want him to go? But yeah, just unfortunate for him. I think the Monaco experience bit some of the less experienced drivers a little harder. So we've got Bortoleto down here, we've got Colapinto down here, we've got Antonelli down here. So those three of the rookies. They kind of had a rough day. So, but that's almost to be expected, with Monaco being as tight as it is and as twisty as it is and as hard to pass as it is.
Yeah, it's definitely a stinker for Kimi Antonelli. He's shown so well so far this season for being a rookie, and really showing that he does have the talent that warranted him getting into this Mercedes seat so quickly at such a young age. But yeah, this one was definitely trying for him, both in qualifying and in the race. I guess the best outlook for him after this is that his teammate didn't score points either. So it wasn't all on Kimi. Still a really rough day for him. But I think that the Mercedes team has a lot of responsibility for the performance of their drivers this weekend as well.
Yeah, a very, very rough weekend for Mercedes. And we will talk about them, especially when we get into the fan emails, because we've got some good questions on that as well. All right, moving into the midfield. He may have started in Nice, but he finishes in Monaco, and he finishes in P12 in Monaco. That was Ali Behrman in the Haas. P11, a guy who felt like, if you were just listening to his radio, wanted to take his ball and go home. and go sit on a yacht and pull a Kimi Räikkönen. I almost expected it at one point. George Russell in the Mercedes. He did not have a very fun Sunday for sure. P10, getting into the points. Carlos Sainz in the Williams, doing some yeoman work, especially at the end for his teammate. P9, Alex Albon. So double points for Williams. I think that was their objective. That's what they wanted. They engineered it. They got it done. P8, Liam Lawson. I believe this is his first points in the Racing Bulls this season. Coming home in the points. So good job. They manipulated the two-stop rule to their advantage. I think the Racing Bulls took the most advantage that they could from that. P7, again, smoke and mirrors and Haas car. Esteban Ocon converts the good qualifying form into a solid result for Haas. That's big for them. But he was one lap down to the leader. P6, Isaac Hadjar, again, Racing Bulls doing the best with the strategy and the game that they were given. I thought they played it. They probably played the game the best that you could and managed to come home with two good results, two solid cars in the points there. P5, a guy who I thought, had he been pushing more, might have been able to give Max Verstappen a bit more of a headache late, but it was not to be. That was Lewis Hamilton in the Ferrari. P4, a guy who waited until the very last lap to complete his second stop, but that's the game, and that's how you play it, and good on you for doing it. Max Verstappen comes home in P4, where he started. We'll just go into the podium because there really isn't much differential between the two of them here. The podium was P3, Oscar Piastri, who had a charge late when Max Verstappen was holding up both Leclerc and Lando Norris to try to make that battle a thing, but he was unable to basically get engaged, especially late, so he comes home where he qualified in P3. P2, I'm thinking he's sick of looking at Lando Norris's rear wing assembly after this race, because he basically did it for 78 laps. Charles Leclerc, despite having multiple cracks at DRS, despite having a lap one lockup from Lando Norris, just was unable to convert or get a pass done, which just proves how hard it is to freaking overtake here. Comes home in P2, but P1, he gets it done. 78 laps. He was under pressure for a lot of them. Lando Norris, that guy right there, manages to come home in P1 in Monaco. His best ever result here. Win number 2 on the season for him. Puts him back in championship contention. So, a big hit back here in the points, a big hit back here for his confidence. Certainly converting the qualifying form into a race result. Cody, big thoughts. Midfield podium, what else you got?
Well, there's definitely a lot to talk about here. So I guess I'll open with, if we account for Fernando Alonso's retirement, really the top 10 pretty much finished where they started. Top 6 finished exactly where they started. And let's see here, the next 4 after that, pretty much, I think, all moved up one spot because of Fernando Alonso being out of it. So, yeah, not really a whole lot of overtaking opportunities, not in the pits, not on the track. Everyone pretty much finished where they started. I did think there was going to be maybe a little bit of drama right out of the gate, because right off the start, Lando Norris has a big lockup going into that first turn, and I was thinking, like, oh my god, like maybe he blew it. He did not. He did a fine job holding up Leclerc there. It also kind of scrunched some stuff up behind him, so I thought that Max Verstappen was having a little look on Oscar Piastri for just a second there, and it got me excited, and then nothing ended up happening, and I was very disappointed.
Yeah, I mean, it turned out to be kind of after the lap one first corner, it turned out to be much more of a pace race, and then who could find the clean air, and when you found the clean air, you could definitely see the differential in I think overall pace. When Lando decided he could push, he was able to push. It didn't seem to matter the compound of tires. I think that whole point turned out to be kind of moot, whether you were on a medium or whether you were on the hard tire. Nobody wanted to take the C6 as a race tire. That much was clear from the qualifying and the practices. So, it was going to be those two compound races. And McLaren had set themselves up to have 2 sets of hards. So they were pretty confident and comfortable with the tire sets that they had. And everybody else, even the ones who were still on the 2 sets of mediums, didn't really matter. I mean, Max Verstappen puts on 44 laps on his set of medium tires on his, second stint there. And it wasn't until the very, very end, with I think maybe even 3 or 4 laps to go, that he finally comes on the radio and says these tires are dead. So you still have the same endemic problems that you always have here at Monaco. You cannot overtake, the cars are too wide, the tires don't give up fast enough. So what you ended up with, because you had these two stops, is you had groups of cars. It felt a little bit kind of like an F2 race with a prime strategy and an alternative strategy. And the alternative strategy seemed to be you're going to sacrifice your teammate. You're going to have him go really slow to build you a gap. And your lead car is going to be the one that's going to try to get the most points out of it. And then you're going to try to repay the favor on the second stint if you can. That's what Williams did. That's what Racing Bulls did. And so you ended up with these huge gaps of, 4 or 5 cars in one, sector of the track and 10 or 12 in another sector of the track. So by the time it got to be where you're lapping people, the blue flags were waving aplenty. And you could definitely see on the timing when someone would come up on a gaggle of cars, because all of a sudden the gaps would like shrink, and then they'd get out of the gaggle of cars, and the gaps would go back to basically where they were. So, it was interesting from a timing standpoint. I don't know that it added some tension. I don't know that it added a whole lot of strategy that you could have done something different or you could have tried something different. We did see cars come in on the first lap with the virtual safety car, which they never did throw a full safety car. They never did throw a red flag. So you didn't have any of the you didn't feel like it got manipulated by anything like that. But it's just felt like Monaco at the end of the day, I guess.
Yeah, it was not manipulated by, a safety car or a red flag, but it was definitely manipulated by the teams and their wacky strategies. The fact that you can do what Racing Bulls and what Williams did here just puts the problems of Monaco on full display. Yep. The fact that you can go that much slower than the car in front of you to build up that gap for a pit stop. The fact that you can go that much slower and no one can get around you is a big problem. It's, they were going very slow at some points, like many seconds a lap slower than, the normal pace, and nobody can do anything about it. There's no good passing opportunities unless someone makes a pretty big mistake. At one point, George Russell got really fed up with Alexander Albon holding him up and decided, I'm just going to drive straight through the chicane to get around him. And this goes to show you that you really got to be careful what you say on the radio, because George Russell went on the radio and said, I'll take the penalty. I was sick of sitting behind him anyway. And the FIA had said beforehand, we've kind of been going into this type of penalty being like a 10-second penalty. It used to be 5 seconds. Now it's kind of more 10-second standard. But they did even put verbiage, I think, into some of the notes this weekend that said that, hey, depending on what's going on, we might even decide to give you something more severe than a 10-second penalty. And George Russell set himself up for that perfectly, because he pretty much said, to hell with the rules, give me the penalty, I don't give a shit. And they looked at that and said, oh, well, we're going to give something even worse for you. And I believe, he got a drive-through penalty,
He got a full-on drive-through. That then Mercedes was on the radio and said that we're going to wait as long as possible to take it. And then eventually they brought him in. And he hadn't done any of the pit stops. I do not understand what Mercedes thought of the strategy was. I think they were like, well, we're just going to wait and wait and wait until the race ends. But you would get disqualified if you didn't take your pit stops. So, again, I did not understand what the thought of trying to get moving forward if they could have. But clearly, George Russell, the robots are not in charge yet, George. And until the robots are in charge, you got to watch what you freaking say on the radio. And as soon as he did it, I'm like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. That is the ultimate screw you guys, I'm going home thing from South Park there. And that's what it felt like. It felt like he was going to take his ball and go home. And he probably should have parked his car, gotten out of the car, and found a yacht somewhere. Because I think that probably would have at least been more funny than what he ended up doing. Because what he did was, you can't do that. I don't care. And again, this is Mr. GPDA, ultra safety, all of that stuff. So imagine that next meeting. That's going to be fun. The next time he sees it, I think Alex Albon and him have patched up at least a little bit since then. But still, you can't do that, George. That's just blatant stupidity right there. But
Yes, very, very
yeah,
unsportsmanlike.
yeah. I mean, it's just from a guy who always kind of holds on to that standard. That's the guy who every time somebody else screws up, he's the guy pointing it out and going, "Oh, yeah, 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 that's the guy who jumped. That's the guy. Oh, he did that. Can't do that because I'm president of the GPDA, and we got to safety first and all that other stuff." And when the shoe's on the other foot and it's you the one doing it, it's not a good look, man. Not a good look. I think he lost a couple points in my book, to be honest with you. And I like George a lot.
Yeah. The weird holding up everyone else strategy though did pay off for Racing Bulls and for Williams. They both had
And Haas.
both cars in the points, and Haas. Yep, Esteban Ocon gets way up in there in 7th place. Great points for them. Let's see here. What else here? Max Verstappen did, as you said, did wait to take his second pit stop until the very end, and was making things tense, I guess, where he's holding up Lando Norris and pretty much letting Charles Leclerc catch right up to him. And again, it goes back to the fact that you can do this just shows the problems with Monaco is, Max is holding up the field so much that the cars behind him are bunching up. And even though you've got Lando, who's had the best pace all weekend, he can't do anything about it. He can't get around Max. Charles Leclerc is now scrunched right up behind Lando Norris. He can't get around him. He can't do anything about it.
I mean, it got so bad that Lando was actually dropping back 2 and 3 seconds behind Max to build a gap so that he could push back. Because everybody knew Max had to take the second stop. It was just a question of when. And, Max is right to hold it out as long as he possibly can for a safety car or, God forbid, a red flag where he could, literally he could have inherited a win by doing that. So
that would have been pretty farcical if that happened. I'm actually kind of happy it didn't happen because no matter how much I want Max to win, that one would have been like, ooh.
This hat would have been somewhere on the street over there, I think, if that had actually come out and played to fruition. But but I mean, it made it a tense watch, like I said, for me, because you never know what. When you're a Lando fan, you're always just waiting for the other shoe to drop, and it's like, where's the moment? There's always a moment, even when he wins, where something gets weird. And it turned out it was just the first corner, and after that, I think he was fine. And then the second Max pitted, Lando just floored it and goes 3 seconds faster, sets the fastest lap, and pulls out a 3-second gap in 1 lap over Charles. And there were a couple points on the timing where the timing gets to that 0.1, and that's usually when a car is like almost alongside. And there was a moment in Rascast where Leclerc was on the outside, and Lando had to be kind of inch perfect to not hit Leclerc, and 2, get off that corner and get enough jump so that the DRS couldn't catch him. But yeah, I mean, that was Monaco being Monaco kind of at the end of the day. So yeah, I like I said, I don't think I'm a fan of the 2-stop. This iteration of it, I admire them for trying something. But it still comes down to me is it's the cars. It's the cars. Now, next year, it's going to be a little bit different. I don't think it's enough. I've always allocated, I for some sort of a special event for Monaco. And when we get to the fan emails, we'll talk about it a little bit more about it. It's what my kind of vision is. I've evolved it a little bit since the last time we've talked about it. So, I guess I'll put that kind of as a tease for the second segment, because we're going to basically wrap it up here. For the Monaco GP weekend. We'll come back. We'll take a break. We'll come on back. We'll recap what this did to the point standing, because it did shake up the driver standings for sure. The driver standings look a little bit different, especially in the lower tier of the top 10. We'll talk about where it hits for the team standings. One team now has a P2 problem because Max Verstappen is now right on their heels. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll open it up to your thoughts on the weekend fan email segment. We got a lot of good contributors in here. We got some people who are back in big ways. So we'll react to all of that. We'll hand out some awards. We'll talk a little bit about predictions. And then we will get into the Indy 500, which was the second helping of our, I guess if you really wanted to do, you had 4. You had MotoGP. I didn't watch MotoGP. I couldn't do that. But I watched Monaco. I watched the Indy 500. And I actually watched the Coca-Cola 600, more of it than I thought I was ever going to. But so yeah, I did about 10 hours of consecutive motorsport this past Sunday. But anyway, we're going to get into all that in just a little bit. Come on back. You won't want to miss it. Welcome back on in. This is our season 7, episode number 16 of the Outlap F1 podcast. It's our 2025 Monaco / Indy 500 review show. You've got Andy and I'm along with Cody tonight, and we just wrapped up talking about the Monaco GP. We shall talk about the Indy 500 at the end of the show and some of the late breaking, even today, 24 hours later drama that has still going on down in Indianapolis. Cars are getting thrown out left and right. You get disqualified. You get disqualified. You get disqualified too. But oh my gosh. But anyway, like I said, we just wrapped up talking about Monaco. We're going to look at where the F1 standings are after this round of the Formula One World Championship. So Cody, if you want to take the drivers, which is a lot closer than it was, I'll handle the teams.
Yes. So after the Monaco Grand Prix, the drivers' standings leader still is Oscar Piastri for McLaren at 161 points. However, Lando's victory has brought him very well within striking distance. Lando is in second at 158 points, so just 3 points behind Oscar. Max Verstappen definitely didn't have his greatest race weekend here. He seems to be kind of bouncing back and forth between magic and meh. He is still in third place, though, in the driver standings, 136 points in the Red Bull. So that puts him, I think, one race win's worth of points out of the lead. Still a gap that, could be closed, but he is pretty far out of it for the moment. George Russell, no points this weekend, so that allows the gap between Max and George to open up a bit. George is in fourth place in the Mercedes at 99 points. Charles Leclerc, pretty good haul of points this weekend. He is in fifth place in the first Ferrari at 79 points. And Lewis Hamilton did about the best that he could after his grid position penalty. He is in sixth place in the other Ferrari at 63 points. Kimi Antonelli will probably want to forget about this one pretty quick. Also, no points earned this weekend. He's in seventh in the other Mercedes at 48 points. Alex Albon, actually, not too far away from Kimi Antonelli, which is pretty amazing considering where Williams has been in the previous bunch of years. But Alex is in eighth place in the Williams at 42 points. So only 6 points behind Kimi Antonelli in the Mercedes. Pretty impressive, if I say so myself. Esteban Ocon, also very impressive, in ninth place for Haas at 20 points. And then Isaac Hadjar making himself look pretty strong in his rookie season. I didn't think anyone thought that he was going to be the Racing Bulls driver that was going to be having this much success. But yeah, Isaac Hadjar, 10th place for Racing Bulls with 15 points.
Yeah, dispatching the normally P10 holding Lance Stroll, who has been ousted by 1 point this week. All right, so for your team standings, McLaren Mercedes are probably going to win the Constructors' Championship. It's going to take some bit of an epic collapse if they manage to follow this one up, because they are out. They are in P1, and they are up to 319 points on the season. An amazing first part of the season for them. P2 is Mercedes, who picked a bad weekend to get no points. So they 40-0 is how they get outscored by McLaren. So they remain on 147 points, and P3 is right on their heels. Red Bull Racing Honda are now up to 143 points. So P2 in the Constructors is in mass jeopardy. P4 is Ferrari. So 2, 3, and 4 are going to have a bit of a ding-dong in the next little few rounds for sure, because P4 is now Ferrari. They are up to 142 points on the season for them. P5 is Williams. There is a gap between Ferrari and Williams, but the Williams score is really respectable for them. They are up to 54 points, clearly the best, not in the top 4 this season. P6, I keep saying it, smoke, mirrors, Haas, and good engineering and picking up opportunities where they present themselves. Get them up to 26 points on the season. P7, but they are now in a fight because P7 Racing Bulls has stepped up, and they are now up to 22 points on the season. P8, it is still the Lance Stroll flying the flag for Aston Martin. All 14 points are all Lance Strolls. So good on you, Lance, I guess, for that. P9 is still Alpine. They remain on the 7 points. They did not score any points this round. P10, again, no points for them this round, but they do have 6 points to their name. Kick, Sauber, Ferrari, bringing up the rear in 10th place. Okay, you have heard our takes on the Monaco GP weekend and the mandatory two-stop strategy and all of the not fun or what that brought. It is now time to hear your takes on what you thought of the Monaco GP weekend. It's the fan email segment. We've got some great questions here. So Cody, it's your time to shine. We will start as always. Well, not as always. It depends on who gets it first. I think Rachel Fleming actually won the race. So she got it in right as the checkered flag was falling. So she gets to go first. So Cody, what are Rachel's thoughts on the weekend?
All right. So thank you, Rachel, for your email. And she says, well, that was not too bad, to be honest. Lando needed that win. He needed a weekend like that, and he was on it, and getting that pole position was key to the win. So the 2 pit stops. I think it kind of worked as it led to tension throughout the field, but it did stuff over Mercedes. The holding up the field for other teammates was a main talking point, but it worked for Williams and Racing Bulls. Oh, Mercedes. Terrible weekend all around. George using the chicane to overtake Albon was just clearly frustration, but I'm glad the stewards had teeth and didn't just slap a 5-second penalty and did a drive-through penalty instead. When was the last time we saw one of those? Alonso watch. I did want to cry when I saw him pull over with a smoking car. He would have got points, and because Lawson scored points, he is now below him in the Drivers' Championship. Sauber watch. Hulkenberg was caught up in the Lawson, later the Albon, train. As for Bortoletto, that was a very easy rookie mistake, but at least he got it out of the wall. I almost forgot that happened. That was like one of the only exciting things from the race, and I forgot about it. And finally, I dread to think how many penalty points Gasly is going to get for this race, and I expect the grid drop to mean he will start in Portugal instead of Spain. Yeah, a lot of good points here. A lot of things that we talked about, and I guess I'm going to open it up with, despite how much I thought this race was kind of a joke with nobody being able to pass and how much you could hold up other cars. Lando did do everything he needed to do. He had fantastic qualifying, got the pole position, did everything on track that he needed to do, even though he was at times under frustrating pressure from being slowed down in front and having cars squeezed right up behind him But Lando, he did a great race. He deserved the win. The champagne spray that he got out of his kind of signature pounding it on the podium was awesome. It was like full on jet. So looked really good on TV. I'm sure he is walking away from this.
Did you catch the minute where before they go out on the podium, there's this official looking guy? I don't know if he's one of the prince's handlers or something like that, where they're like, please do not spray the champagne until after the prince leaves the box, because they knew who was in there, and he's looking right at Lando the whole time because he knew who was there.
I can believe that. Yes, please don't get champagne on the prince. But yes, he's gonna celebrate. I'm sure he's probably celebrated very hard this weekend. Hopefully this gives him the confidence boost that he needs to take the fight to Piastri, and they are almost tied on points at this point, so it's quite the game between them. Big thing I want to talk about, though, is the 2 pit stops. As you said before, I do give some props to, Formula One and the FIA and everybody who was involved in these decisions. They did try to make it more exciting. They did the mandatory 2 pit stops, and they did the softer compounds of tires. And that's something that I've mentioned on the show before, was that I thought that maybe doing Monaco with some kind of super soft compound that made it so that you used up the tires more quickly might make it more exciting. And apparently they were kind of heading in that direction too. The problem is we saw that it didn't work. And I think what we've seen is that there's not really anything that you can do to make it work at the moment, because it's not necessarily the quantity of pit stops. It's not necessarily the fact that you can make tires last forever at Monaco. It's the fact that there's no ability to pass with the current generation of cars. They are too large for Monaco. Monaco is a tough place to pass as it is, even if you have smaller cars. But we do see in other series, the smaller cars make a difference. Especially like with the junior formula, and especially Formula E, Like you watch the Monaco Formula E race, and there's tons of overtaking. It's very exciting compared to
Mm-hmm.
Formula One.
You watch the Masters historic stuff in Monaco, and it's amazing. And you understand why you get the history as to why this place is as revered as it is, because there used to be all these natural great overtaking places. Sorry.
No,
Continue.
you are perfectly correct. The problem is that's just not the case anymore, and I don't even know how much you can do about it, because part of why the cars have gotten so large over time is things that make sense. They're trying to make the cars more safe, for one thing. You need extra room to put in all those safety measures and padding and everything like that. That's one thing. The fact that we've done away with refueling, because refueling can be dangerous if there's an ignition. It means you need larger fuel tanks. That means you need a larger car. The cars just have gotten so large that all of those places where you could have passing opportunities before are just not there. The performance of the cars has gotten so strong that you can't really, a lot of time you can't really wait for another driver to make a mistake, because with how large the cars are, you can literally tiptoe through a lot of the corners to avoid making a mistake, and there's nothing the car behind you can do about it. So yes, I think now there's a tiny bit of hope. I guess, we have to have a little bit of hope for Monaco. Tiny bit of hope going into next year that things will be different because of just how different the cars are going to be. All things considered, yes, they are smaller. They're not that much smaller, though. If you look at how much narrower the cars are, it's like something like 15 centimeters. So half a ruler. It's nothing, really. But there is a little bit of hope that maybe there will be more strategy with the way they do the electrical deployment and the active aero and all of that stuff. So I'm trying to stay optimistic, but we did see this weekend that tire compounds, pit stops, like it's not going to make a difference.
Yeah, I mean, it would be uber ironic if all of a sudden nobody likes the 2026 cars. Everybody hates the active aero, but Monaco is somehow better. That would be what you would want to call irony, because and that would be something that I almost think we might actually end up seeing. I do think it will be a little bit better, but you have to do something with the size of the cars. It's just that simple. The cars, they're too wide. The track is not wide enough. There is only one lane, and that's on a good day. You got multiple cars getting impeding penalties. Why? Because these cars come on you so thick and fast that by the time you try to react, and there's certain places there is literally nowhere to go. And that's just the reality of it. There are parts of it where it looks like there might be some occasions to overtake, but you've got chicanes and track limits, and the only way that you could ever pull off an overtake in this era of car is to go off outside of the track limits. That's it. And that's coming out of the tunnel, and that's if you cut the chicane. That's it. Beyond that, I don't see it. Because Leclerc, there were several times where Leclerc got to, like I said, that 0.1 on the timing, and that usually means an overtake is either coming or it's a failed move that's coming. And it just never got there, and he never could get there. And if there was anybody in that entire grid of 20 who was going to do anything in his power other than wreck, it was going to be him. And the fact that he couldn't get it done when, look, Lando was pretty much boxed in for the last 15 laps of that race, and almost was like a sitting duck and doing everything that he could to try to wiggle himself out of it. So the strategy by Max and the counter strategy by Lando and the pushing by Leclerc, and Lando looking for Oscar to come up and put pressure on Leclerc to try to give him something else to think about. Nobody was, but all of that, nobody was overtaking anybody. So I'll give you my Monaco theory, my evolved Monaco theory in the next question, because I think somebody asked if it should get dropped. But yeah, I mean, it just comes back to it's the cars. Until you do something about the width of the cars, or until you do something about how the track is laid out, you have to change something, because otherwise it's immovable force meets impenetrable object, and it just doesn't go anywhere. And this is what you're going to get. You're going to get this lovely, epic Saturday that is just amazing and appointment television all the way around. And you just get these Sundays that are just, unless it rains and it's a drying track and somebody has to come in and do a freak pit stop, or something else is going to happen. If it's dry, this is what you're going to get. Doesn't matter what you do. You can make 3 stops. You're going to have the same thing. You're just going to You're just going to cycle it around each time. I guess, thank God, we didn't have like a safety car manipulation or a red flag manipulation or something like that would have just made it a complete farce. And then everybody would have been pissed. Um, I would rather everybody be annoyed and just kind of take it and say, well, all right, at least we tried something. So that's my kind of overall kind of feeling on that. Rachel, to your other points, yeah, Mercedes just again wanted to pick up their ball and go home. I think they're just happy to be out of there. I was very frustrated as a McLaren fan who loves Fernando, because I always, even though a lot of McLaren fans don't think of that second Fernando stint as a good thing, I think it was. Part of the reason was because he brought Andrea Stella with him when he came over from Ferrari, and now Andrea Stella's running the team and all that other good stuff. So I kind of backhandedly always thank Fernando Alonso for this iteration of McLaren goodness for that. So, and a guy who's mellowed over the course of his career, and a guy who's much more likable now than when he was before. So it was tough to watch a guy who I thought was going to get points. I legit thought he had survived the pit cycles. He had the funny radio, and he was hopefully going to get a P7 out of it. And this is just not his year, man. So it's all about next year. Yeah, poof. The roulette wheel did not spin right for him. As to the Saubers, yeah, it was a tough thing to watch Bortoletto go into the barriers there. I'm glad he got his car out, because I, again, figured, well, here comes a safety car, here comes a red flag. The fact that he got it out kind of let the weirdness of the two-stop thing kind of have to just let itself play out. So I thought that was good.
All right, thank you, Rachel, for your email. Next in, we've got Dave Doherty, who says, "Hi, team. Well, that was an interesting race, as the Grand Prix was interesting with two-stop strategies, and it seemed to work perfectly for the front runners. That was a highlight of the day. I loved the communication with the Ferrari and McLaren as they were working out when to out. A little word salad here. I love the communication with the Ferrari and McLaren as they were working out how to outsmart each other on strategy. Do you think the two-stop strategy is a good thing? And do you think Williams is developing to be better?" So let's talk about Mercedes. Monaco hasn't been a Mercedes track since 2021, although in that Hamilton era, that was a completely different story. But Mercedes AMG went from looking good at the start of the season until Imola. From now, it's like they have dropped the ball. But the real question, do you think Monaco should be dropped? As I watched the highlights, as I've seen social media take on the race, I thought the race was good at first, but I kind of agreed that the race wasn't going anywhere. What are your thoughts? It would be very disappointing in some ways, I guess, if Monaco dropped off of the grid just because of the history behind it. It would be kind of like if you had the Indy, if you had IndyCar without the Indy 500 in some ways. And, they kind of did that for a while with where, the IRL series started, and that got separated away from CART. And then CART died because CART didn't have the Indy 500 anymore. They still had all the really popular CART drivers for the most part, but they died out. And while I don't think that would be quite what would happen with Formula One, I don't think Formula One is quite as dependent on their crown jewel race. There is so much history with that track. It was missed in 2020. But it doesn't really work with these, as we were just discussing, it doesn't really work with these current cars. It's kind of more there because of the history behind it. It makes a great parade, but it's not. To me, it doesn't even really feel like it should be in some ways like a points paying race anymore. Like, it almost in some ways could be better as an exhibition because it's all dependent on qualifying. But at the same time, it'll never be an exhibition race because then with the cost cap and everything, what teams are going to show up for a non-points paying race. So it's kind of in this awkward position where it's on contract now for several more years at least. And it does have the chance to make a comeback. All it takes is one race like they had in 2023 where you get a lot of rain and you got people flying off the track and you don't actually know who's going to win. And then we'll all be back saying like, Monaco's awesome. We hope it never goes away. But then for every one of those, you get like 5 of these where it's a total stinker and boring as all get out, and nobody changes position. I mean, last year the Monaco race, it was awesome in the sense that Charles Leclerc won it finally, but god damn, that was like the most boring Formula One race I have ever seen.
There was lap 1, a long pause, lap 78.
Yep.
There was red flag on lap 1. Everybody changed tires. Nobody came into the pits, and everybody just went around in circles for 78 times. That was last year's race.
That race was so bad. I'm pretty sure that's why they looked at this and they're like, "We got to do something, guys. We got to try to make it more interesting."
Oh, absolutely, and that I love the fact that at least they're thinking of things. Now they probably have to think of some better things. I saw some suggestions of maybe you make sure that the first pit stop has to happen between this lap and this lap or something like that. Like you could do an F2 rule that says you can't come in until the first 6 laps are done, and then make your first pit stop before lap 30 or something like that. I mean, it's going to feel manipulated no matter what you do. So my evolved idea, and my idea has always been, give all the teams a Monaco spec car and let it be an exhibition, put a big cash prize at the top, put money or team money down all the way through the top 10, and let those guys go at it and put it in as part of the cost cap. Give cost cap credit. If you finish first in Monaco in the spec series race, congratulations. You get $500,000 or whatever you want to do. $1 million, $500,000 of cost cap credit that you can use to develop your car. That will make sure everybody shows up. I also think in terms of points, what you do is you have your whatever spec of car you've got, do the qualifying like you always do. That you have to keep that. You let them practice. You can split the practices up. You can do you could do FP1 and FP2 on Friday in your regular car to set up for qualifying, and you can do FP3 in your spec car, to set up for the race on Sunday. And you give everybody a chance. You give some guys who Liam Lawson would have a chance to take a race win. Now, granted, it might not be for points, but it would be for cost cap credit. But and make it fun, make it a thing. There's a lot of good things about Monaco as a venue and the commercial side and all that. It works. It's worked for 70 plus years. It's clearly not going to go anywhere. It's got a contract. I don't think they're ever going to do an idea like that. I don't think they're going to try to make it that way. But to me, what I would do is I would get your points done in the qualifying, get your F1 round, because effectively that's what it is. And you're going to watch everybody hang out and fight like hell for all that stuff. And then make the Sunday part of it, like I said, a spec race with cars that are going to be able to overtake each other. And like I said, you give these guys at least a session to work on these cars. You have, like I said, it's a one-off thing. Don't make it as part of a triple header. Here, that's the other part. You got to if you're going to do something like that, you got to make it to where it's a standalone race so that everybody can kind of prep for it, because it's different. If it's a different literal cat to what you're doing, everything else. So that's my evolved Monaco idea. I still think you got to do something about the cars. Maybe it's someday. I've seen parts of it where they said, "Oh yeah, put them all in F3 car." I'm like, hey, they're listening. They're starting to listen. So they're getting there. But yeah, I mean, Dave, to your other questions, Mercedes just had a bad couple races here. I don't think that they've dropped the ball or anything. I just don't know that those two tracks have suited them. They are still in the situation where cool weather and lack of sunshine suits that car. So when it gets sunny out, when it gets warmer out, they've kind of faded back a little bit. I do expect them to come back, especially in the second half of the season. But I think the next few rounds, they may be in a little more of a struggle bus, unless they get like some British weather for the British Grand Prix that clouds over and it's 50 degrees out, which they've had in the middle of July. So, that may be a one-off good for them. But I'm just looking at the calendar moving forward. I mean, Canada can be cold. Austria can be cold. And Great Britain can be cold. So, I mean, there's still chances. But I would be looking very much at the weather to see kind of where I think they're going to be, because as it's gotten hotter, they've not solved that problem, and they've admitted that.
Dave did ask here, do you think the Williams is developing to be better? No, I don't think
No.
so at all. I think they are working with what they got at this point. They built a good car for this year. They got two really, really good drivers wheeling those cars, and I think they are probably in a better position than maybe they expected to be, and they're gonna take what they've got and run with it. I
Yeah.
think they're going to continue to do what we've suspected they're doing, which is putting all of their development and money into developing next year's car because they want to be in the best position they can be for the new regulations. And they're trying to get as much as they can out of this year. I wouldn't expect them to bring any major upgrades to the car. Um, they've built up. They're in fifth place. They're kind of on a little bit of an island at the moment between the top four teams and the rest of the five teams behind them. And they're probably hoping, okay, great. If we get fifth place this year and we get all the money that comes with that, awesome. If other teams start to catch up to them, as the season goes on, I still don't think they're going to do a whole lot to stop them. They're just going to, continue putting Albon and signs in these cars and say, go out there and do the best you can. And, if we get fifth, awesome. If we don't, it's not the end of the world. I really don't think they're going to be putting any major development into this car.
Yeah, I mean, the question you'd have to ask if they're going to put a lot of development in is, do they think they could catch Ferrari? And I think the answer to that is no. Even if they were to fully somehow commit to a B spec car or a huge upgrade package, like, you can't do it now. I mean, now you're looking at another maybe 4 or 5. It's basically from start to finish, you're looking at a 6-week delta. So let's say they decided to do that. You're looking now at you're almost to the summer break before you're going to put those set of upgrades on the car. And by then, I mean, you're already almost 100 points down on Ferrari. There's no probative value for them to develop the car this year. They're gonna do exactly what you said, Cody. They're gonna wheel as much as they can out of it. They're gonna develop. They're going to learn as much as they can about what they have. They're going to use each practice to try to wring out performance where they can, but it's going to be based on what they have. You're not going to see a new chassis. You're not going to see any of the traditional, other than circuit-specific updates that would be coming onto the car anyway. I don't think you're going to see a huge swath of updates for Williams, but they have done it with what they've got, and they've been doing an awesome job with it. Now, next year is a completely different story. I think you're going to see them come in with a good spec. They're going to come in and they're going to have a development plan all kind of laid out to try to wring performance out of that car next year, because that may be their opportunity. They may have an opportunity to really surprise some folks next season. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I look forward to the order getting toppled next year. I mean, it's happened before, and I think next year is going to, even if the cars themselves may not be as cool and exciting as they are right now, and we've talked about many times the worries that are going with the regulations next year. It still will be exciting in the sense that we have no idea who's going to be on top. So I look forward to that part. Thank you, Dave, for your email. Our next one comes in from the Formula, and he says, my 4-year-old convinced me to watch the race on demand with the F1 Kids broadcast. That was a very different experience, let me tell you, but kind of fun, to be honest. And, well, Monaco was Monaco, but that's fine. Great showing from Williams. Yes, we did talk about how Williams was one of the teams that really started using the sacrifice one teammate to get good pit stops for your other teammate. They ended up still getting both cars in the points, so it was a great showing from them and VCARB as well. If I'm being perfectly honest, I didn't even know there was an F1 Kids broadcast. I got to imagine they're not putting some of George Russell or Fernando Alonso's radio messages out there as part of it. But yeah, I really have no idea what that's like, other than all the stuff my nephew watches and trying to imagine that with Formula One somehow.
I mean, I don't know if you've ever watched the NFL does something similar where they have the SpongeBob playoff game.
I have seen the Nickelodeon broadcast for football, and it's weird, dude. Like, I'm not particularly a fan. I loved Nickelodeon as a kid, and I like football as an adult, and I still like Nickelodeon as an adult, but you mush them together and it gets weird.
Yeah, and I imagine it's kind of some of this here. I mean, when they first went to the F1 Kids, I mean, Sky did a good job of trying to introduce you to who those kids were. And to me, it felt like a lot of the kids were getting fed, this is what I'm going to tell you to say, and you just say it, and good on the kid for figuring that out, because that's a hard skill, and if you don't just have it. So I don't know how pure that is, but I'm sure it's a different experience. It's got to be a much different experience than talking about strategy and tire compounds, and and who's going to pit when, and Crofty doing Crofty things, or or whoever he's with in the booth. So yeah, I mean, if that's your cup of tea, hey, go for it. It's one of the few times it was on. I think the only time you can really get it in the U.S. is when the broadcasts are on ABC over the air. So I bet the next time you would probably see it would be for Canada, or probably for Great Britain, somewhere where they'll stick it on an alternate ESPN channel, and you could watch it kind of that way. Now, how much of a delay that broadcast has versus what you're used to is another factor that I would consider, because you could be a few seconds behind or a few seconds in front, however you want to go. So it's definitely, like I said, I've never watched it myself, but if it's your cup of tea, hey, go for it. It's cool.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I'm pretty sure one time I was watching the Super Bowl with my wife's family, and the Nickelodeon broadcast was actually less delayed than the regular broadcast, which was really strange. But I also got to love the Formula's happy-go-lucky attitude here with, well, Monaco was Monaco, but that's fine. That's about as positive as an outlook you can have on this race, and more on you for feeling that way.
It did it. It's still prestigious. Lando's going to love that trophy. He's probably going to sleep with it a couple of times and just won't tell anybody about it.
You still get your beautiful camera shots of the the city on the ocean with all the big giant yachts and everything like that. Like you still get the glamorous side of it for sure.
Let's the glam totally there.
Yep.
Disagree with that.
Thank you, the Formula, for your email. And our last one comes in from John. Good to hear from you, John. And he says, glad to see you back at the helm, Andy. Yep, I'm definitely happy for you being back and healthy. For lovely Monaco, new rules only work when the punishment fits. When the punishment is better for strategy than just not pitting, clearly there is an issue. Although I am happy to see Georgie Boy get a drive-through for a blatant manipulation. Also, did Ferrari really not tell Lewis what was happening at the front and have him push like hell? Oh, yeah, okay. He could have clipped Max for P4, and that was something that you mentioned before, that, yeah, maybe Lewis should have pushed a little harder, because sure, Max was losing a lot of time, slowing up everyone behind him. John goes on to say, another year, another example of why Monaco needs to go extinct. So that is the opposite end of the opinion spectrum there. And then John says, God bless our troops, and God bless America. Yes, it is Memorial Day weekend here in the States. Great time for celebration.
First responders, mega love, man, for doing what you do every day, and for not asking for anything more than what you normally get. Just having a recent experience with some of that. Like I said, those people do not get paid enough money, man. For all the shit that they have to deal with, the paramedics, the not just the troops, but paramedics, police officers, nurses, doctors, anybody who's in a crucible stress environment like that, they don't get enough. And kudos to everybody who chooses to do that for a living, man. It's a special breed, and I know I'm not one of them. So kudos, my hats off to you, literally.
Yep, well said. And lastly, John says, also, I'll get hate for this, but having to hear both Will Buxton and Danica Patrick on the same broadcast should be considered cruel and unusual punishment. Honestly, not really sure that is...
That's for the Indy 500.
Oh, for the Indy 500.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so that's right. That's right. I forgot Will Buxton was over there on that broadcast now. Like I said, I'm not sure if I said this on the broadcast or on our episode here yet. I didn't get to watch the Indy 500 live. Sadly, I had other things going on. So I didn't get to hear that side of the broadcast. I kind of like Will Buxton. I don't mind him. I think he gets a lot of flack for his presence on Drive to Survive, because sometimes some of the things that he says are a little silly. But as a broadcaster goes, I think he's actually pretty good. Now, Danica Patrick, kind of annoys the hell out of me. I think that's a pretty popular opinion.
Yeah,
We actually,
she doesn't make me any smarter, and that's kind of my threshold for if I like you as a pundit. Do you
yeah.
sometimes make me smarter? And she doesn't. I think what she says is fine. It's not all hot takes like certain other pundits that are out there, but it's also there's really nothing there. It's like eating wafers. It's fine. But like, do I think there are better female voices out there that could be? Yes. Put Jamie Chadwick on that broadcast in the Danica Patrick seat and watch what you learn, because that's somebody who drove an Indy Next, who's driven all different spec of Formula car, and can tell you something and make you a smarter fan.
mm-hmm.
100% that.
Yes, there are lots of female drivers out there that would probably love to be on the broadcast, and I think could contribute more. But she's who they got right now, so I mean, it could be worse. They could have your favorite. They could have Jacques Villeneuve. He was a successful car driver. He could come back. He could do commentary for the Indy 500.
I'll tell you though, the combination worked because I think the ratings have come out, and 7 million people watched the Indy 500. So the Fox promotion that started all the way back at the Super Bowl of introducing you to like Joseph Newgarden and Pato O'Ward and Will Power and those guys, for Fox, at least for a first year bump, is a pretty good bump. Even though we're going to talk about it in a little bit, I didn't think the racing was as good as last year's race was. I thought last year's race was electric. This year's race with the hybrid. Well, again, we're going to get into
this year's race was literally electric.
Yes.
But
yeah, exactly. nice. Nicely done there. But we'll get into that in just a little bit. But anyway, I understand. Yeah, I mean, Monaco's Monaco. We know that, and the Lewis thing was just weird. I don't understand why. I didn't get it at the time either, because I'm looking at the gaps and it's like he's 45 seconds behind the lead pack of 4. But the lead pack of 4 was going 4 and 5 seconds a lap slower than they could have. And maybe at the end, if Lewis tried, like, he would have had to put fast lap after fast lap after fast lap in. And I don't know if he had the gaps to do it. So that's my only question of, was he in a gaggle of blue flags that he just wasn't going to be able to get out of? But once Max started to do the hold up act, I was shocked that there wasn't more pressure from the Ferrari side to say, go get him, because Max is coming back to you. So, I don't know what happened, if they would, maybe Ferrari dropped the ball there, or they just didn't think it was mathematically possible given where the gaps were. I don't know.
Yep. We'll have to take another look at that one to see exactly why Lewis wasn't pushing like hell.
Well, because he asked, there was one radio message that I know got replayed that said, am I really still a minute behind? Because they have the timing. Like, you can do so much in a Formula One car, but you can also watch the race as you're going around, because there's enough big screens, and those big screens have a big enough timing where he knew what the gaps were. So he's like, am I still really a minute behind? And then they just said, well, we'll talk about it later. And again, I don't know why you just don't say it right then and there. Like, it's already done. There's nothing you could have done about it at that point when he asks you the question. So you might as well just look stupid and move on. But
yeah.
Anyway, we're getting there with Ferrari and Lewis. It's going to be this is all just set up for next year. It's all just set up for next year. Anyway, all right. Thank you to everybody who contributed in the fan email segment. It was great. It's nice to be back at the helm doing what we like to do. So yeah, today has been actually the best I have felt since in 3 weeks. So, so all good. Thank you, John. He actually checked in with me over text, so I appreciate that as well. All right, so we will move into our awards, and we shall start with the rubbish. Lots of good candidates here. What could go in the bin, along with maybe just the Monaco circuit in general. But Cody, what you got here? I'll let you go first. What you got?
My rubbish award is going to go to teams using one driver as a sacrifice to hold up the field so that their teammate can get a free pit stop and be eligible for better points. I understand the strategy, and it worked for the teams that used it. It's just, it doesn't look good. It doesn't seem very sporting, and the whole reason it works is because this is Monaco, and you can't pass, and you can do bullshit things like drive 5 seconds a lap slower and hold up everyone behind you. So I think that yeah, the teams took advantage of something that they could, but it's still just, it didn't look good. And this race already, has a tendency to look bad on Sunday. So this just kind of made it look even worse, and really revealed that the the things that we've tested out with softer tires and mandatory two stops, it ain't working.
Yeah, good points all the way around. My rubbish is actually just going to go out to one guy, and this was George Russell. And I'm just going to give you a free piece of advice, George. You might just not want to say, just give me the effing penalty on the radio, because until the robots are in the steward's room, that pisses people off. And I could just imagine looking like the three stewards had to have looked at each other and go, 10 second, 10 second, drive through. That's what we're doing. Drive through.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck you, George. And that's what you got, basically. You got a fuck you penalty for that because you did a fuck you move. And it goes in the rubbish bin. And that you're better than that. And that's the frustrating part. You are the president of the GPDA. You should act like it. And you didn't there. And I thought you got your head about you in all the wrong places. And that was annoying to see. So it goes in the rubbish bin for me. All right. So we will now move into analysis paralysis. I'll go first on this one. And it just seriously felt like Mercedes in general, after Saturday, wanted to take their ball and go home. And that's what they did. They didn't pit either car until somewhere in the lap 60-ish. And then they did two stops, which effectively took them out of any contention that they were ever going to be in. I didn't get the strategy. It made no sense. And it didn't work, the bottom line. And still, throughout all that, George Russell still comes home with P11. Now, he was many seconds behind P10 and with no chance of really getting a point out of it. But the fact is, you were still kind of almost there. And maybe had you tried a little bit better, maybe you could have gotten something out of it. But anyway, Mercedes did not make any sense to me. Cody, what you got here?
With my analysis paralysis, I'm almost kind of doubling down with what I said in the rubbish award. We were optimistic, but you can't change Monaco without changing the cars. I feel like they put a lot of, looking into what can we do to make Monaco more exciting. And what they came up with is some stuff that people have been talking about for a long time, making more mandatory pit stops, making softer tires. But, you're putting all of that analysis into it to try to make Monaco more exciting when the real solution is staring you in the face. The cars are too big. We're not going to get an exciting Monaco unless you have cataclysmic weather or you have smaller cars. And that's just the way it's going to be. Yeah, maybe borrow the Formula E cars for the weekend.
Or do something like that. I mean, wouldn't that be a spectacle? The guys who've never driven anything. I mean, Formula E is it's so different of style of driving. I would imagine if you put F1 cars and you don't give them any practice or anything like that, I imagine half of them are going to run out of energy before like the first half of the race. It's going to be
I would
really
actually enjoy
bad.
watching that. That would be really fun.
Well, who knows? Liberty Media is still in charge. You never know what you're going to have. Maybe they'll talk to each other, but the president of Formula E and Liberty Media don't like each other. I know that, so I don't anticipate that happening anytime soon. All right, so moving into Dark Horse of the Day, Isaac Hadjar and the VCARB team. If you're going to play the game, you might as well play it well. They did it the best out of anybody, and they get my shout out for Dark Horse of the Day here. Also good to see Liam Lawson get some points and some positive shine on him for a change. Cody, what you got here?
I'm also going to go with Isaac Hadjar, despite the fact that I said that I thought that the strategy was kind of gimmicky and unsporting. They did really well, and Isaac Hadjar finishing all the way up in sixth place. Really great points for him, for the team. He's wildly outdoing Yuki Tsunoda in this race, at least. So who knows? Maybe we're going to see Isaac Hadjar floundering in that second Red Bull seat before the end of the season.
You never know. Well, with Helmut Marko standing over people's shoulders, one never knows. One never knows. Wait till Austria and he does his court state of Red Bull thing, and then you'll find out who the next ones are that he's looking at. But anyway, we will move into driver of the day. I know Charles Leclerc was a very popular choice with the fans. I get it, and I thought he did everything he possibly could to try to win the race, and I respect that tremendously. However, the guy who got the pole lap done, the guy who took all the pressure, almost threw it away on lap 1, turn 1, but he didn't. It's always an adventure with this guy. It's why I love him so much. Lando Norris gets my driver of the day vote from me. Cody, what you got here?
I'm also going to go with Lando Norris. He got the pole. He got it fair and square. He won the race. He did that fair and square. There's nothing really you can say to detract from his victory. He did a great job. As stated, it was a little nerve-wracking going into that very first turn with the big lockup, but after that, didn't put a toe out of line, and he got the win, and it put him right back into the championship contention. So, got to give it to Lando.
Yep. Everything gets a little bit closer in the standings for sure. All right, so we shall turn into our predictions. We were really, really good with the lap times. That was about the highlight of it, though, because we all thought I thought Oscar Piastri was going to be the one that would dominate here, not necessarily Lando. So that screwed me over. So when I'm very Oscar-centric predictions, and Oscar doesn't do quite so well, yeah, it kind of fell apart. So I only scored 1 point. I got the prop bet because we did see some red flags in qualifying. Cody, you did manage to get 3 points on the weekend. You got the fastest quali time by 4/100ths of a second. So just like in real life, our qualifying deltas were very, very close. You were minus 0.42. I think I was plus 0.46. So you get it by virtue of that. I had to get out the calculator to figure that out. You also got the fastest lap time. You were much closer than I was. And you got the prop bet as well, because we both said we were going to see some red flags in qualifying. So you now have taken over the overall lead in the predictions game. You are now up 4-3, because we did not do one for Imola because I wasn't there to do it. All right. Well, that's going to kind of do it for our Monaco GP coverage. If you are just an F1 fan, you don't want to hear us talk about anything IndyCar, that's fine. You can hop off now. May all your laps be fast. We love you and all that other good stuff. But if you want to stick around, we're going to talk about one heck of a drama-filled month that was. All right. Third time I finally managed to execute that sound the way it was supposed to go. All right. We following Monaco, we had the 109th running of the Indy 500. And if you thought Monaco didn't have enough chaos for you, the Indy 500 made up for it and then some, especially early. Number one, some freak little rain showers moved across the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and caused about a 35-40 minute delay to the start of the actual race. But the good news is they didn't lose the track. They were able to eventually get going. That did put Kyle Larson, who was attempting to do the double, under some pressure because he only had a small window where he could try to make it from Indy to Charlotte in order to get for the Coca-Cola 600 later on that night. But that all proved to kind of work itself out. But at the end of the day, he is inevitable this season. It is Thanos. This is like 2023 Max Verstappen type level dominance. He's won 5 out of the first 6 races, and the one race he didn't win, he came in second. Alex Palou from Barcelona, Spain, is just on another level this season. And yeah, this wasn't a dominant victory, but he was there when it was time for go time with about 30 laps to go. He hit the magic little buttons and made a move that you normally wouldn't expect somebody, even with this set of aero package and the hybrid and all of the weird, tough ways to overtake. He put an overtake on Marcus Ericsson and basically grabbed the victory with 2 cars in front who were almost a lap down to kind of screw up the air to everybody else. There really wasn't a whole lot of other anything anybody really could do. Crash on the very last lap from Nolan Siegel brings out a yellow. So we never got really the last corner dash to the line, but it probably wasn't going to make any difference. Alex Palou takes the 109th running of the Indy 500. And then the drama kicked off. We already talked in our preview about the Penske drama and them getting thrown out, basically, of qualifying. Today, the other hammer came down, not against more Penskes, but against Andretti Global and against Prema. The number 28 car, the second place finisher on the road of Marcus Ericsson, gets booted to the back of the results for failing post-race technical inspection. So does the number 28 car. They get booted also to the back. And then
27, right?
27, yeah. So Marcus Ericsson, Kyle Kirkwood, and then the number 90, Callum Ilott, who had a surprisingly good result for Prema, even though pole sitter Robert Schwartzman kind of learned how much fun the Indy 500 is. He had himself a rough afternoon, including turning his pit crew into some bowling balls in a very scary-looking situation. Thank God everybody walked away and was okay from that. A couple very, very scary moments in the race on pit road. The Schwartzman incident, the Alexander Rossi with the fuel hose catching on fire.
Yeah, that one was scary too.
And a guy getting literally beat down with a blanket to try to make sure that the fire that you can't see was all the way out. So luckily everybody was okay. Maybe one guy I think may have a broken foot, but that's basically the extent of the injuries. So that was very, very fortunate. But just a crazy race that now moves a whole bunch of people up. So your podium now is Alex Palou, P1, David Malukas, local Chicago kid, man, coming home in P2 for AJ Foyt. Best result for him in a long time because he had the whole wrist thing. He was signed with Arrow McLaren. The Arrow McLaren kicked him out of his contract because he was unable to perform in the time specified to come back from his injury. So just good on a good kid to see that. Pato Award. The hard luck kind of continued for him. Up there for most of the race, but not able to really do anything. No huge overtakes at the end, just because of the way the arrow and everything kind of fell out. He inherits P3. So Arrow McLaren does get a Monaco win and podium and an Indy 500 podium in a weird way. So they kind of almost did the double there. So, hey, Zach Brown, you're having yourselves quite a weekend. Felix Rosenquist comes home in P4. Again, a guy who I think was in contention all day, but just unable to really make any moves there at the end. Santino Ferrucci comes home in P5, P6, Christian Rasmussen, P7. Fuel strategy got Christian Lundgaard up that high, and then he takes advantage of the two Andretti cars getting booted to the back, comes home in P7. P8, Connor Daly, local boy who led the race for a good chunk of it. You always wanted to root for him. He had, I think it was a tire blister issue or something like that happened to him right before his last stop. So you got to get them all right. And if you have some bad luck, sometimes it bites you. And that's what bit Connor there. Front row runner Takuma Sato, who by far led the most laps on the day with 51. The hard luck struck him as well on his last stop. Comes home in P9 and P10. The drive for 5, almost, but not quite. Helio Castroneves, despite being age 51. You want to talk about old still being good. You got Takuma Sato, age 48, and Helio Castroneves, age 51, coming home in P9 and P10 on the day. So those are your top 10 finishers. Cody, did you get of what you did get a chance to watch? What did you think of the race?
So I did watch some extended highlights.
Okay.
So I got pretty much the gist of all the big stuff that happened. Definitely some really scary pit stop stuff. You did have Robert Schwartzman run over pretty much several of his pit crew members. That was scary. I actually did a big cringe at that, and that wasn't even live. But that did look nasty. The Alexander Rossi thing where he comes in, his car catches fire because I think some like fuel kind of jetted out when they were working on it. Yeah, fuel pump failed, some fuel jetted out. Car catches on fire, and you could tell that one of their pit members was on fire because they kept hosing that guy down with the fire extinguisher like repeatedly, which is kind of scary because some of those flames they burn in such a way that you can't see them.
Right, you cannot see them, and the guy's running around. It looks like something out of a
burned, and it's hard to tell. Yeah. So they were hosing him down, patting him down with the blanket. Fortunately, he is okay. That was the end of Alexander Rossi's race, which is really too bad because he was having a fairly decent race. Yeah. He led for a little bit.
He would have been a dark horse for the win.
Scott McLaughlin out before the race even started. He's had a rough weekend. Now, Scott McLaughlin, very successful IndyCar driver, very successful driver in general. Many championships won in Australia in their V8 supercars. But he trying to heat up the tires going up to the grid, ended up spinning out, taking himself out before he even had a chance, which was too bad because he's a driver I am quite a fan of. Kyle Larson didn't have the greatest luck. I believe he had a crash as well that took him out.
He had a spin. He spun himself.
Yeah,
One bad gear shift going into turn one got him sideways. He took
that's all
out, I
it
think,
takes.
Stingray Robb and a couple of Kiffin Simpson in the same crash there. Not to be for Joseph Newgarden. He had some sort of a mechanical failure during a pit stop, and that was kind of the end of his day. It turned out to be fatal to his car. So the drive for 3 in a row, even though he was looking like he could have been in the contention for the win as well. So everybody else kind of falls off, and there's Alex Palou, there's Thanos, just there at the end with enough of contention. Now, obviously, we didn't know that Ericsson or other hard luck guy, Kyle Kirkwood, was going to get thrown to the back in these post race results. But yeah, Marcus Ericsson was clearly very emotional after coming home at least P2 on the road. So you see what this race means to everybody. I do think IndyCar's at a lot of crossroads, and kind of in general. I mean, if you ask me, the Indy 500 in the month of May is just a special thing. But beyond that, they have a major crisis of conscience right now. They need an independent board to come in and kind of do the refereeing, because right now those are all Penske Entertainment employees who are doing it. Yeah, they're two different companies, but it doesn't look good when your main franchise gets kicked out of qualifying for failing tech, and then you got more cars getting kicked out of the race result for failing tech. And the question is, why is this stuff taking all the way till now to get caught? We yell at the FIA for being bad, but at least 2.5 hours after the race ends, they've done all their post-race checks and they've referred anybody who's not in conformity to the stewards. It's a pain in the ass, but at least it all gets done in the same day. This, over 24 hours since the green flag falls to when this final result finally gets made official, not a good look. Not a good look for the series. And there's a lot of good things to talk about with IndyCar, but they have some. They need a new super speedway chassis in the worst way, because the aero sucks. It's very, very hard to overtake on a track that usually is an overtaking festival. Since they put the aero screen on, and the aero screen needs to be there. I'm not saying take the aero screen off the car, but you got to update the chassis to make it all kind of merge well. And the sooner that they can do that, I think that it's just going to be better for the series as a whole. They're struggling to try to figure out where they want their hybrid program to be. Right now, it's basically effectively like an additional push to pass. They already have a push to pass system, and then they have the hybrid on top of it. So it's kind of double. So it makes the qualifying a lot more interesting, I thought, because usually the first lap is your bellwether lap, and each successive lap, when you do your 4-lap run, gets slower. Well, here you could wait and you use your hybrid on the second half, and you could have lap times come back to you a little bit, which I thought made that interesting. That was fun. That was interesting. That's a good use of it. But in the races, it becomes a lot more difficult to manage. It's very heavy, makes the cars a lot tougher to drive, and a lot harder to overtake. So I do think that there's some engineering that needs to be done. There needs to be some money spent. I know nobody wants to spend money in IndyCar, but I think that's kind of how you have to do it to try to move that series forward, because there's a lot of good stories going on around here. But it's just overshadowed, I think, by all of these weird technical infringements.
Yeah, I agree that they do need to do something. Definitely wasn't as much like on track action passing as there has been in previous. And I really do think a lot of it is the hybrid system too, because like you talked about how this aero package isn't really great, but we've still seen quite a bit of exciting passing and on track action for previous Indy 500s. I think this is the first one where they actually used the hybrid package in the Indy 500, and you could tell that the on track action was down somewhat. As you said, though, we did see some good performance from some older drivers here. Takuma Sato led like a quarter of the race. He's been around for a long time. He looked Castor Neves finishing in the top 10. You had Ryan Hunter-Reay, previous champion, previous winner of this race. He led almost a quarter of the race as well.
He just got lucky. I mean, he was there. Yeah. He had done all the right things. You almost think like the track picked somebody. It almost looked like it was going to pick Hunter-Reay, and then it just didn't work out.
Unfortunately, he goes into the pits and stalls his car in pit lane. He can't get it restarted, so he was pretty much screwed at that point, which is really too bad to see. But yeah, Alex Palou running away with it. Very animated when he won. Very good to see. He's very passionate. I feel like you gotta you're going to pretty much do that when you win the Indy 500. You know, you're winning the
Oh,
crown jewel.
the celebration
running down the got out of his car, running down
an awesome
the
moment.
off
I mean, that in and of itself was an awesome moment. I mean, take all the problems of IndyCar and put that aside. That moment for Alex Palou, because this is his first win on an oval, and now the IndyCar series kind of shifts into more road course / oval in the second half of that season. Like I said, he's going to win the championship. If he doesn't win the championship, it's because somebody drugged him and kept him out of 4 races, because I think that's exactly what the math is going to take at this point for anybody to catch him. So, I mean, you're looking at your 2025 IndyCar overall champion, your Indy 500 winner. So he's going to take all the accolades this season, and well earned, because like I said before, I when you see it live, you understand how much better he was at certain points of a race than some other players were. So, and you know, good on you. Good on you. That's all you got to do. You have to admire this. Like, if you were going to say Max Verstappen 2023 should be admired, it should be one of the greatest F1 seasons at all time, this is going to be right up there with it, at least in terms of IndyCar. Absolutely. All right. Well, so concludes this weekend of Manic Motorsport and all of the sessions and everything else. We've got one more left in our triple header. It is Spain. It is going to be all about the front wing and the wing regulations. That's going to be the talking point going into the weekend, and we'll see if any of that actually matters. But that's what we're going to talk about more than likely in a preview later on this week. It's going to be an interesting review, because I'm going to try to do it again from the hinterlands of northern Wisconsin. So we're going to have an adventure. We're going to see if how well my mobile internet can make it. But we're gonna try it, and we're going to see how bad we trip over each other, because I'm sure there's going to be a delay in the recording. But anyway, so we're going to try that, and we're going to go from there. So anyway, Cody, any final thoughts before we hop on out?
Just that it was fun weekend of racing, despite the fact that maybe Monaco didn't really deliver this time out. Still had a great time. Catching up on some big auto racing. I am looking forward to Spain. Looking forward to see if the change in the front wing clampdown, if that makes any sort of difference. I know a lot of teams are planning on bringing some big upgrade packages to Spain as well. Like Ferrari, I believe, is doing so. So it'll be interesting to see if the pecking order changes at all. This is a track that's been used for testing before. The teams know it very well, so it's a great place to bring upgrades and try out new regulations, I suppose. So I'm excited for this one.
Yeah. So we will get into it, all about it, all into Spain next weekend. So yeah. So for Cody, it's been Andy. Gotta love this weekend of motorsport. At least glad we have it. Let's put it that way. And once again, thank you to all the first responders. That's why we have the day off today. So keep doing what you do. We love you. And as always, may all your laps be fast.